Good morning. In here there are supposed to be a lot of little calves. So this got toppled over. I will put it upright in a moment. And let's see what happened here. Oh, here's nobody. There is one, and I would assume that is Maribel. And let's see what happened here overnight and in the early morning. It is Saturday and it's not early morning. I need some rest myself. So, Maribel. So, it's pretty obvious. They all got out here and are there with their mamas, as you would expect. Yeah, so this was an idea that has not been thought so very well, but okay. And horses and sheep, they are over there. That's all perfectly fine. And little Maribel here is getting horns because she wants to see if I have some milk here somewhere. That's what a little cow thinks. But humans don't have that. Okay, so that's the situation. Total failure. The idea is to wean them because their mamas won't do it. So we wanted to keep them over the weekend here. But as this was not properly secured, they got back to their mamas. Yesterday they were calling each other heavily, so that instinct of being together is very strong, which is good. But unfortunately their mamas let their kids suck them dry and then they die. So that's not how it's supposed to be. Welcome back to Gran Jacamito here in the Pedroche Valley of Andalusia, Spain, where we struggle quite a bit with the high temperatures. It's almost 40 degrees centigrade. So what you see here might be a model for the future. It's basically that we are wasting water because not everything is watertight and here and there's an accident. And the result is that the Bermuda grass here in this area is constantly receiving something. And therefore this is now pretty nice and green. So if we were to work more on plant-based stuff, water them and do this in all these paddocks one by one, then step by step the hydrology of the place would then also change. And I think that is one of the ways going forward, that we dedicate more and more time, once all these places are pig safe, in a way like you can see here, so that in these places we can cultivate something, that we grow something, food for them in the first round. Later maybe food for humans, but for the time being it's better to let them participate in growing their own food and therefore also changing the soil. because in here, as we could see, this grew very well. Of course now it's all gone, and they declared their toilet there in that corner, as you can see it. Pigs do declare a corner as a toilet, and therefore we need to add more straw to that in order to reduce the odor. You can smell a little bit, it's not that bad, but it's also not non-existing. So there they have some straw, but that was so that they can play and chew on something instead of eating dirt. And now another bag, another bale is missing, so that this gets covered. And that means the soil in here is getting better and better every time we do this. So once they get moved out, we will then seed something in here again. And that is the pattern. So have pigs in a small area, let them do their thing, destroy everything, and then seed, and then create something. So after the destruction comes creation, and that is the idea. You see that thick fence post here? This is new, because cow 5536, who is basically about to go blind, ran against the fence post. She has a difficult life now. We are trying to save the one eye that is not completely blind. Last Friday the vet tried something, maybe it works. Half blind is better than completely blind. She's a good mother, as you could see. I even used her as an example in another video. But if she continues to run against fence posts and the fences, this will not last very long. So we are working on that. And the guys replaced this fence post with the Sigger model, which is better for corners. Last Friday, it means yesterday, the guys set up a few sprinklers here. It was not exactly how I wanted this to be, but it's better than nothing. They are not cannons. They don't throw the water very far, but you see that some of this is now moist instead of completely dry. Because the problem is right here, there is not a lot of crotallaria, so here it doesn't really help, but further down that moisture will also arrive. This is connected to the 3000 liter tank up at the Altiplano, but this is probably almost empty because the two pumps were working, and of course now there's not enough in there anymore, so one shut-off valve needs to be closed so that it fills up again. But it's better than nothing, and this moisture should travel further down and do some good there. It's a challenge, but we try what we can, and we will repeat the Crotallaria huncea a lot of times, because it turns out that this is better suited here in our situation than the Sudan grass, because the Sudan grass has been drying out while the Crotallaria is holding out much better. So over there the Sudan grass has also received water by sprinklers, and let's see how it looks like, but I don't think that this is going to be a well-performing crop in our situation. While this right here has not received any water by sprinklers, instead it came out of the trench here, which I will also fill up now. So this is much better, and it has a taproot, while the Sudan grass is just the grass. And if you compare, you will see how sad it looks like, despite the fact that we added some water here. And as it has this problem with prussic acid, I don't think that this is the way forward, and neither is sorghum, because it has the same problem. And I'm pretty sure in our climate this is not really the solution. It might produce a lot of forage and all that, given that there is water, but that is exactly our problem. So this is not the pioneer crop that we can use, but this one there, it is. So there will be more next year of that. And as always, a look at the Paulownia trees. They are growing well, taller and taller. So this is also a good pioneer plant in our present situation. This is not how I envision the whole thing to be. So this is just a step. And once we have the nursery, I have to repeat this because here and there people are asking. Once we have the nursery, then we will plant step by step a lot of so-called native species, so trees that are from around here. But around here does not mean this place, because here there is nothing else but oak trees. So the oaks are the only ones left. And whatever we bring in, and that grows here, you could then say is part of the game, and it's a native, even if it came from Asia. So it doesn't really matter. But in all honesty, there is a long list of trees that I would like to have here, but without having my own nursery, I cannot find someone who can deliver me enough of those little trees in order to plant here. The municipalities may have a nursery, but it's for their own use and they don't sell it. And selling also means you have to purchase it with money, and that money has to come from somewhere. So I'd rather go the slow route and manage the cash flow so that I won't die along the way. Now you can see that Sudan grass isn't really growing and it is dying. It's just too dry. This might be happy once established, but it cannot establish itself during the summer when the temperature is right if there is not enough moisture. Of course, this has been here on purpose above the swale because we wanted to see how this will perform, and it's performing very badly. Even here in the shadier parts where there is less evaporation and some condensation overnight. So there's something there, but as it is, it's probably a time bomb for all the ruminants because of the prussic acid problem. So not good. I think we need to keep this area off limits, and later when the rain comes back it will be too cold for this, and the native grasses that we had in here will then come up in a similar way as they did where the pigs uprooted everything. So this is not a total loss, except that Sudan grass is not the thing for us. And these guys here, yes, so they definitely need some more water. So this is not enough, because those where there is more water in the little pond and not here in this very dry swale now, they are doing a lot better. So this one here is struggling, so we need to add something. We removed the drip irrigation line, and maybe we have to put it back, because they have not reached the water table yet. And as there is no water coming up from this side, from above, it's a problem. So I guess we need to fill up the swale again with the way that we know how to do it. So I just opened the valve here in order to fill up the swale, so that these trees and also the Sunn Hemp below gets water. That is a lot more important than to keep this crop alive. And actually the sooner it dies off, the less risk there is, because right now if a calf would venture in here, it would certainly eat this, and then we could say goodbye to the calf. So that is not what we want. So we cancel this experiment now that it's possible and we have the information, and focus on something that works better, and that is why you do an experiment. So we spent some work, we spent a bag of seed. Now we know, and now we have to move on and continue with the things that work better for us. Every situation is different, and this is ours. It is 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It is a Sunday. I am showing you the neighbor to the right of our driveway in what we call Zone C. That is the place that leads up to the Altiplano. It is almost 40 degrees centigrade, and I want to check on all the different plantings that we have and on the water. So this here is the area where, due to the fact that the seed was mixed with dirt in order to save on seeds, we don't have a lot of Sunn Hemp here, but there is some, and what is there seems to be growing, but slowly. This is also the area where we have no swale since before, and therefore we created that trench. And I will go and check the trench now, so if there is water in it. And there in the distance you can see something green. That is the mix of corn and sunflowers. It's a challenging situation because of the temperature and the fact that there is no rain, and there will be no rain. What we have is blue sky, and that basically every day. And once there is some visible moisture, then it's just a few very thin clouds. There will be no rain out of those. So I will now see what I can find. Tomorrow, Monday, the guys also have a very important task. They have to go around and figure out how all the different plantings look like. And we also need to do some administrative stuff. One example that I think is very, very much needed is to have a plan for each and every water pump. So this is dry here, interesting. So that we know when you open that valve what happens. Because if you even have a powerful pump and you open too many valves, then you won't get water out of the end of the pipe, because the pressure is not enough. So this, see, that's exactly the example. So this is not full of water, because yesterday I opened the shut-off valve to fill the swale in order to help some of the trees there. And by the way, if you think that I'm breathing a little bit heavy, yes, it is very hot. And when you walk around in a very hot, in very hot temperatures, then it costs a little bit more force. So some water came out of here, but it did not fill this, so it did not go all the way to the end. So there is some sign of water, but I will now change this, because certainly the swale has filled up a good portion. This is growing a lot better and has no prussic acid issue. So let's see. Here we do have a rest of water, and the palovnias should definitely be able to reach it by now. And of course that depends. So you can see where the original level was, and then we put the loose soil from the excavation on top of it. And if the palovnias want to reach it, they would have to penetrate the compacted soil, and then they are able to tap into this water source. I hope they do. but even for them it is pretty hot. So let's see what the water does. So what you see here upcoming, that is what was there before, and the valve that I opened is further ahead. Yeah, and if I pan here, you can see this is not going well. Yeah, this should be lush and tall already, but it cannot, because this does not contain any moisture anymore. That is also why the electric fence does not work without a negative wire. So it is just too dry. And what we need to figure out is how to restore fertile and moist soil in all the different places. And I have a feeling we need to do this in much smaller parcels. So instead of doing this and then fail, which is a learning, so it's not a problem. But I think the learning is do this, but do this in a small place where you can definitely add the water to it instead of struggling with the limited resource. So 5,000 square meters fenced in, and then we can add a few sprinklers to it and maintain the place moist. Now we can work with drip irrigation instead of 2 hectares. That probably would have been smarter, because some of it is growing, but like I said, we will not support it anymore, and if it dies off, then so be it. The less prussic acid issue we then have. Because imagine a calf comes in here and enjoys all this green, even if it's a bit on the dry side, and then very shortly after the calf might be dead. So that is not helpful. So this is now the valve, and that was in order to help, especially the tree there at the end. This tree does not look very good. So it's not that it's too moist, because the tree is a little bit older already. It is lack of water. So let's hope that all this will then help it. And I will now turn off this valve, which then should cause the other side where the trench is to open. So let's see. So this is now shut, and for now this should be okay. We have more shut-off valves to wet this part, but I won't open them at the moment because I want the trench to fill. So let's see how that goes. Interestingly enough, this oak tree here is making new sprouts down there, so it resprouts from the root system. And if I pan up, you can also see how it looks like. The light might make it a little bit difficult. It's a challenging situation. So it makes new leaves, and it's taking advantage of the situation. So not all is bad. Also the Sunn Hemp down there is growing, so it is reaching up, and that means what you see above the ground is usually also below the ground. So this has a taproot and therefore should be able to reach some moisture. This does not have to be perfect, as long as something is growing there that is forage. And I have a feeling that we will repeat this. So I will ask the supplier of the Sunn Hemp to send us bags with the seed so that we have them for the next round. The problem is, because of all the industrial agriculture, the whole system is optimized for something that you would call a just-in-time delivery. So when there is the season for planting X, then the seed for eggs is available, and when it's not, then you can't get it. And if you are not in the business of producing a certain crop, but you still want to have it for another purpose, then you won't get it. So that's an issue, and that is why we needed to learn a little bit about that. And now we have a supplier, and we can talk to a human there who understands now what we are doing. And that is why I was able to get the Sunn Hemp, because the company that likes to promote it here in the area apparently did not want to deliver us the seed, because we are in a dehesa, and in a dehesa you don't have crops. Well, we do have crops in order to restore the dehesa. So that is also an issue that we are struggling with. And sometimes people don't like to participate due to misunderstanding. So here is a very nice example of how the Sunn Hemp can look like. This is a much taller plant. For some reason this one went ahead. So this is our future here. And as you can see, shutting that valve now makes the water come out of here, which is good. It looks a little bit slow, but it has to come a long way. And as long as it is pumping the whole day, this well, or this trench, will then be filled. And just for the record, I should mention, later on, once we have enough vetiver, we will plant this left and right, because this seems to be a permanent feature. We want to keep this around, and therefore use it to plant more vetiver and have more vetiver, and that also should then reduce evaporation. So I really want to get started with this topic of establishing smaller areas that can play certain roles, that are fully fenced in and fenced in pig safe, so that we can reshape this whole landscape, 45 hectares, by doing it 5,000 square meters or less at a time. I think that makes more sense. It's a long process, but water is an issue, and as we cannot irrigate using a cannon because we don't have the pressure for that, that's probably the only way. And we can also do some things like Miyawaki forests, so a lot of trees in a small area. Of course, that is connected to the nursery, and I have been talking about the nursery for quite a while, but we're getting closer. So this will all come together, but none of the plant-based things will make sense if we cannot finish the fencing job. So we definitely need to pay a lot more attention on that. But then the problem is, even if you have 3 guys working on that, they are easily confused by all the competing requirements. I know this from IT. You have the same thing. You have 25 very expensive people working on something, and they are completely confused, and months go by and the most important things are not being worked on because there's so much firefighting. It's a human problem, and the only way to solve this in a sustainable way is not to have a manager telling people every day what to do, but instead train them well and make sure that they understand and visualize everything. But that's a longer process. There is a reason why the chaos breaks out in the first place, and you cannot just make an executive order and then the chaos is gone. This is not how it works. So it's a longer process, and as this is part of my other work, which here and there keeps me busy and has also caused me to say, guys, there will be a little bit less video for a moment. I am busy in the IT world, and that is what finances the whole show, so sorry, not a full-time farmer. And so I know about this, and I try to establish, to apply the learning from my IT work here on this project. This is just another project. It works the same way. Also the subject is different. So there will be more, and we will get this done at some point. And as long as there is progress, I'm happy. The way is the destination, so to say.